Yes, so we're recording now. Thank you, Danielle, for your time. And so today we're having this conversation with actually two companies now, right? It's Sailcargo and Veer as well, and we have many things to talk about. So first, I'd like to start with the progress in Saba and how are things going in the project from the construction side, but also from the financial side.
Yeah, excuse me. Good morning. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for asking about Saba. And yeah, it's been going incredible back there. Incredible because it's just consistently wonderful. And for a project of this scale, I find that really something I'm thankful for. So Saba, in terms of woodwork, again, I'm not on the ground right now. I haven't been there for a few weeks, but it's going very, very well. The team is expanded. We brought in a bunch of new energy from around North America and Europe who have traditional skills in wooden boat building and timber framing. So that's really great to augment or supplement the rest of the team that might be from Costa Rica or other places that don't have as much boat building history. And so, yeah, it's really great. I've been following along on our Instagram, which is the biggest social media channel, and you can see updates every day. And then from a financial side, Saba has gone so well that we actually didn't know what to do with all of the interest for investing. So some people may notice we've paused the investment right now, opportunity online. So that's just a little pause to give us some breathing room. In the interim, we have announced the build of a second ship of the Saba design, which is called Pitaya, and Pitaya means dragon fruit. So at this time, we are collecting letters of intent for this second vessel already. And the reason for the great success, in my opinion, is that we have secured cargo for all northbound voyages for a multi-year contract, a long-term contract. So we're still working through some of those details, but we have the confidence from our client base to go ahead right away with the second vessel, which is also full for all northbound voyages.
Wow. And will you paint Pitaya purple? That would be nice.
Well, we're thinking to keep kind of a classy look with a light or off-white hull, but there will be a stripe, and there's been talk about the rub rail being a brighter color.
Yeah, interesting. So would you say, and also you're been participating in Glasgow, would you say there's enough money around for projects like this, or is there a scarcity of money? It looks like there's enough money. The problem is good projects. Is this correct?
I would agree. So I've just done 3 days an intensive zero-emission shipping event, which is Zestas, zestas.org. And it was really interesting. It was a workshop, so an interactive workshop. And the organizer of that brought together different parties from market, policy, and finance, which you don't normally see, in my opinion, finance engaging at the same open-minded, interactive level. So we had some very high-level finance professionals in the room that were just speaking openly and, saying, oh, email this guy and talk to this person. They had 5 billion for that. And so it was really, really inspiring to see that the finance was there.
Good. And what about overall this movement of sailing cargo vessels? There's many projects, some are operational, some are working in designs or construction. Do you think that the progress is fast enough?
Yes and no. So we've seen on the policy side now, or not policy, I'm sorry, more on it's more from the market, actually. So a lot of these big companies are signing on to things like the new Aspen Institute ambition statement of zero emissions by 2050. So we've got Amazon, IKEA, many other large companies. So you're seeing that, and then people are responding to that. And so there is the support that's there, but the actual projects, I am frankly surprised that I'm not seeing more very realistic opportunities being presented. So without trying to sound, I don't want to say anything bad, but I've seen a lot of concepts that integrate a lot of non-table ready technology. So I mean, not even kind of close. and a lot of projects that are integrating a lot of mitigation technology. So like little steps to reduce emissions here and there, which is very important, especially during the transition phase, which is something that we will be dealing with. But I just didn't see another project that could offer zero emission shipping that was not tied to the coastline. So I think there's room for more.
Yeah. Well, now moving to this, I would say you could maybe argue that there's two segments here. There's the wooden vessels, more traditional, sailed traditionally, and you have commercial shipping, container shipping, and so on. And as far as I gather from, for example, from the interview that you did with Tradewinds, there's some there's a bit of a tension there. For example, you mentioned that I think it was Patagonia, right? A big brand wanted to have a big volume, but you cannot you cannot have a contract like this in a project like Saba, for example. It's similar to the projects that are already on the water. They are doing more like a gourmet coffee, this low volume, high value cargo, wine, or something like that. But if you're going to go for big volume, or if you're going to kind of try to compete, not necessarily head on to like Maersk or Hapag-Lloyd, but if you're going to compete in let's say a general cargo or container shipping, you need to have a different type of project. It looks like that's what you're going to with Veer. So can you comment a bit on the different concepts and how did you arrive to this conclusion?
Yeah, you've definitely hit the nail on the head there. You're absolutely correct. And it's interesting though, we see this differentiation of the service as a strength and not as a weakness. So again, it's very important to me that people understand Saba is going well. We've announced the build of a second ship of the same design of wood, and we are not moving away from that. So something a lot of people who are not from the maritime background don't understand is that there's a range of vessels from literally you can have 1 meter little tiny boats all the way up to over 400 meters boats. And each of these is purpose built specific for their required job. And so when we have a 45 meters length overall wooden vessel, that is designed to do shorter runs, coastal hauls, inter-island, small island nation, and they serve exactly their purpose. And what we want to do now is serve another purpose as well, which is the commercial and the container. And one of the main strengths we've already identified, and this is early on, is that a vessel such as Saba has offerings that a vessel such as our new Veer campaign cannot offer. So less than cargo load, less than container load is in consolidated small amounts is not something we're going to be able to offer with Veer. Excuse me. So when you're talking about truly, a regenerative circular economy, very high value coffee from this guy who picked it himself, those storylines, excuse me, generally can't go into containers because they don't produce enough because they have micro lot estates, which gives them very high value. With Saba, that's not a problem. We could take 1 sack if we wanted, And the other thing is that with Saba, we can also take, so we will be able to do this with Veer if we choose, but other companies don't. We can choose to take vessel lengths that are greater than 40 feet. So when you're talking to a standard container shipping company, your cargo has to fit in the box. We've experienced a massive amount of pushback and struggle with trying to get our masts down from Canada because they're greater than 40 feet. And we've explored like every avenue that we can, and there's no ship that can do it. Please, if anyone's listening, call me. So with Saba, we could easily take 65-foot lengths of timber, for example.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and what are the differences here well, there's maybe a few key differences. For example, the time to build the vessel probably is going to be shorter. The voyage times, you probably sail faster, I guess, but that's one big thing that should be more reliable, at least. And the costs overall. So can you comment a bit on the difference between the two concepts?
Yes, so Saba is a traditional vessel based off of or inspired by the Ingrid, which was built in 1906 in the Åland Islands, so between Finland and Sweden. And I think on a good day, she'll easily be able to reach up to 14 knots. However, we use a very low average calculating speed to do our financial projections, because these traditional vessels, they are a little bit less efficient. So we're going to have to see with that. This is very interesting. And another important point is that the flagship vessel of Veer, which we're calling Project Mamba, so Veer can offer many different projects in the future, is fast. She's designed to be fast. And so our architects were very early stage with this, and some of our figures will be changing as we refine the design. She can sustain 20 knots, completely emission-free.
Wow, very good.
Yeah, so the design, if I may just jump in, the design of this flagship of Veer is, many people will say, and this is actually another article put the wrong picture, that it is very similar to what we've seen before, which is the Ecoliner design put out by Dykstra Naval Architects, which is who we are working with. And this design of the Ecoliner, which has been around for at least 10 years, has been very inspiring to a lot of people. It's a study that was done with different organizations, and it was a motor sailing vessel, so with diesel engine, that could do approximately 12 knots average. So it is a motor sailor. When I sat down with the architects at Dykstra, I said, we're looking at for anew our business model, and it has nothing to do with fossil fuel. So we have nothing to do with a starting point of a dependent vessel. So I said, we need to really start from scratch, and we want the meanest sailing machine that we can make. And so we actually tried to think about this, what is the fastest sailing vessel we can do right now that can also carry cargo and be a reasonable cargo vessel. And so we started off with looking at their most recently launched sailing yacht, Black Pearl, which can apparently reach up to 30 knots. Wow.
So does that mean you have carbon fiber masts, different type of rigging, not traditional rigging? And so this supposedly is very expensive, right?
So we are working with Southern Spars, which provides the masts for the other vessels that are existing, Maltese Falcon and Black Pearl. And these are carbon fiber composite masts that employ the Dynarig technology, which was actually first designed around 1960.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And but we still have some power, so it's going to be, is it hydrogen, electric? What is the concept there?
Yes, so it will be a 100% clean hydrogen engine, which I'm getting a little bit more familiar with all the terminology, but it will be a hydrogen engine on board, and an electric motor is what is actually powering it. And there'll be batteries supplementing or augmenting that for when we have peak power uses. And I believe we're looking into it, whether it will be worthwhile for us to have these regenerative propellers. So
like you have in Saba.
Yes, so Saba, we're working with a company called Hundested, also a Scandinavian company, and these propellers are very sophisticated, and they can regenerate under sail power, so to top up your batteries. And we're looking into whether or not this would be appropriate for the flagship of Veer.
Interesting, yeah. And what about the hull material? You're moving out of wood in this case, and what would be the carbon footprint? Is it aluminum that you're going to?
We did briefly discuss aluminum, but I don't think that it is recommended. The largest yacht that Dykstra has done in aluminum, I think, was 80 meters. And with the flagship of Veer right now, the smallest we're looking at is 100 meters. So when we get into these conversations about metal, and for us with Sailcargo Inc., it's very important conversation, because we're always working with organic, regenerative, sustainable materials, which is locally sourced wood that we harvest responsibly and then replant. Great. That story is great. Now with steel, we have to write a new narrative, making sure that we are fact checking everything and verifying everything. And right off the bat, I'm going to admit that steel comes from open pit mines, many of which are in Brazil, as you should know, of course. And this is not great. So we're looking into that, and we have already committed to looking into end of life cycle as well as study in Bangladesh to see what we can do about that. Some main points that we have already established for ourselves is that we will be, as much as possible, working with clean produced steel, which is a new term on the market. And this is steel which is being produced with clean hydrogen. So I'm no steel expert, but in the process of refinement, that is actually where the largest carbon footprint comes from. And one company that we've just begun talking to from Sweden, they say that, I may get this wrong, there's about 1 to 2 tons of carbon associated with a ton of steel for the production, and their production would be as low as 150 kilograms of carbon per ton.
Well, it's quite
Another
dramatic.
thing we're doing, sorry, I'm talking like
No, it's fine. No, it's a quite dramatic decrease. That's good.
Yeah. Another thing that we are very committed to is the lifespan of the vessel. So, for example, if one attractive point of aluminum is that aluminum can be recycled 100% with no loss of material. And so aluminum is really great for recycling. Steel is not quite as attractive for that. So what we want to do is ensure we have a ship that is with longevity. So the average age of a container ship, last time I Google searched this, is 10.6 years old, the average age of a container ship on the water. And with Saba, that narrative is easy. We anticipate up to 100 years of service. There's no reason why we can't anticipate the same number for the flagship of Veer, because these older vessels that used to have a higher quality steel, they easily operated for a year, 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember. I think it was in a conversation with Echo Clipper, right? And one of these lives that you were trying to find a way around the problem of the steel, because they are also going for steel hull. But that's maybe a point that you can cooperate with other companies that are trying to do similar things, right?
And I remember having a call with Jorna, founder of Eco Clipper, whom I've known for over a decade, and saying, because I think he felt a bit bad about the steel, and we were in conversation because at the time I was only working with wood, and I said, Jorna, just do it, like it's fine. This is a very massive industry and you're doing something to help it. And I always say perfect is the enemy of good. So nothing, including the vessels I'm building, are not perfect. And so I encourage Jorna, just don't feel bad, just openly address it and go for it.
Yeah. Nice. And how mature is the project now? So you just announced it, right? So do you have already the region where you want to operate, the market, who will be the clients, and especially a big problem is the fuel, how you're going to procure the hydrogen for it, construction, where you're going to build it, and things like that, and also financing. Are you going to use similar financing schemes as you did with Saba?
Yeah, we've basically answered none of the questions yet. I just want to start by saying on our website, veer.voyage, and on our social media, veer.voyage, there will be more information coming out. We have a lot more to present. Yeah. So to answer some of these questions, one, a lot of people say, well, I say that the flagship of Veer employs only existing technology or near existing technology, which is why we're going to be able to fast track the build of these vessels. One of the biggest questions is hydrogen. What I can say from being here on the ground in Glasgow, talking to people and hydrogen producers one-on-one, if you're not already building a hydrogen vessel, you're behind the curve, because it's absolutely coming very, very quickly. So that is going to be a major transition. And because we will not launch the first vessel for nearly 3 years from today, that system is going to be in place enough that we can use it. And market, so we decided to go for this vessel, which is capable of carrying 100 TEU, although we are looking at larger as well. We're still finding our place with that. So minimum 100. And we have support from from many clients. We have a lot of support, but one client in particular is really pushing us to go forward, and that is Cafe William, formerly Cafe Victoria, originally from Sherbrooke, Quebec, with their headquarters in New Jersey. And they are coffee, and they import from every single coffee growing country in the world, which allows us to explore routes all over the world where coffee is going, because we already know we have a strong client in any coffee growing country. The first route that we are looking at is Colombia on the Caribbean side or Atlantic side and going up to New Jersey. We need to be sure to acknowledge that all these different routes will not be serviced by one exact replica of this vessel. So we have announced that we will build 6, and we intend to do that, of this flagship. But as we look at longer seagoing voyages, we're already exploring larger vessels and vessels that would serve those voyages more appropriately.
Interesting. Yeah, but what about the financing part?
Yeah,
that's a key point as well, right?
So our initial round of seed funding, which was $500,000, we secured that back in May in 24 hours. And I anticipate that funding is not going to be a problem. As with Saba and Pitaya, we've actually refused to accept funding quite a bit already to this point, because we want to wait to find the perfect investors and partners.
Good. Yeah, maybe a last question is about exactly 3 years from now. So if you are aiming at 2024, you have some established shipping companies, big names, that are announcing they want to move very fast. And maybe the biggest name is also, Maersk is also the one pushing hard to move fast. And they are supposedly having ships capable of burning green methanol, which is, well, not the perfect fuel, but probably you can procure it zero emissions, and they will certainly have a cheaper price per TEU because they are operating these huge vessels, right? Yeah. So how do you see the competition there? Would you say your clients are willing to pay a premium, even though in a conventional shipping company you might have, maybe not in 2024, maybe 26 or 27, you might have a competition in big scale. So how do you see the risk there?
So it's interesting. If you look at exactly what the service is that we're offering, which is long transatlantic, ocean going, zero emission, there is no competition. There's none. So even, I'm sure Maersk could do it in 2 seconds if they chose to. I'm very humble about that, but they're not offering that. So when they're looking at green hydrogen, the only way they could offer that at this point is with an electrolyzer on board. But those other fuels, the storage required, the physical space and weight of the storage of that energy would not allow these vessels to cross the ocean, at least not in a feasible way. So that's why we've employed the existing technology, high level technology of the Dynarig, to allow us to do any distance we want, completely emission free and energy independent. So another option they could do is having electrolyzer on board the vessel, but the amount of energy required to create the hydrogen on board is prohibitive. So you can put solar or like some wind turbines, but it's not going to be able to produce that amount. Again, that's where we have the regenerative propellers, and the wind is how we could, if we wanted, run an electrolyzer on board the vessel, which would give us the capability of creating our own fuel on board. Because the other companies don't offer sail power, that's not available to them. Again, I fully acknowledge in 1 second, if they chose to, they could. But I just don't see that. I don't know, there's like something against sail. But at the same time, we're offering a very beautiful experience. So the sailing vessel, of course, has ties to history. It's a beautiful experience. That's why people buy $300 million yachts. And so what we're offering is that storyline and that narrative, which is just so attractive that people can't look away. And that, I mean, we had that time and time again. So our branding is very important, and they're actually from Bergen. Kind Worldwide is from Bergen, where you are. And we worked very hard to make this something that people wanted to see, because the shipping industry is not typically that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for your time and for giving more details of the project. I wish you the best and that these projects come to fruition and be successful. I'll just start recording now. Thank you very much.